A chemical that scrambles your hormones is leaching into your leftovers right now from the very containers you trusted to keep food safe. But pop the lid on the wrong container, and what you're really swallowing is bisphenol residue, shed microplastics, and unstable plastic additives soaking straight into last night's dinner. If you reheat leftovers in the same scratched tubs you've owned for years, every warm meal carries a little more of that chemistry into your body. Today, I'm breaking down 9 storage brands that failed the safety test, including 2 people swear are premium, plus the only 2 that actually tested clean. Go check the cabinet under your counter before you watch another second. Coming in at number 9, Snapware. Those snap-tight lids that click shut with a satisfying 4-corner seal. The container you grab for soup, for chili, for anything you don't want leaking in your bag. Snapware sells the promise of leak-proof convenience, microwave-ready, dishwasher-safe, built for the busy week. Then you actually use it for a year. Reviewers report the same story over and over. The lids crack along the hinge, the clear plastic clouds and warps, the base develops a faint chemical smell that never fully washes out. That smell is your warning. It's plasticizers and additives breaking down under repeated heat. Run a worn Snapware base through the microwave with tomato sauce inside, acidic, hot, and oily, and you create the perfect conditions for chemical migration into your food. Consumer complaints flag degrading plastic components after repeated dishwasher and microwave cycles. The container looks fine. The damage is invisible. Here's why this matters for your body, not just your dinner. These compounds are endocrine disruptors. They don't pass through and leave. They mimic your hormones. And for anyone over 50 managing blood sugar or thyroid issues, that interference compounds over decades of daily exposure. You don't eat the container, but the container eats into your food twice a day for years. Think about the routine. You batch cook on Sunday, portion it into the same Snapware tubs, then reheat one every weekday at lunch. That's the exact pattern. Hot food, acidic sauce, worn plastic, repeated again and again. That turns a convenient habit into a steady drip of exposure. A cracked lid you keep using is a slow leak into everything you store. Snapware's whole pitch is that it seals tight and protects your meal. The seal works. The plastic underneath doesn't. You bought protection, you got a countdown. And here's the thing about a brand that's only mildly bad. It makes the next one look almost honest by comparison. Because the brand at number 8 isn't just degrading quietly in your cabinet. It's been the subject of consumer warnings about what happens the moment the heat goes up. At number 8, Hefty. Known for tough disposable tubs and reusable storage built for leftovers and meal prep. Hefty's name is the promise. Heavy-duty, dependable, the container you can microwave without a second thought. That confidence is exactly the problem. Environmental health researchers have warned that repeatedly heating plastic food containers can release microplastics and unidentified additive chemicals directly into whatever you're warming up. Hefty's thin, flexible material is built for cost, not for surviving the microwave hundreds of times. Picture the lid you've reheated 1,000 lunches under. The faint warping at the edges, the cloudy film that won't scrub off. Each heating cycle is another chance for plastic particles to break loose and ride into your food on a wave of steam. Microplastics from heated plastic don't dissolve in your stomach and vanish. Scientists keep finding them lodged in human tissue, in blood, in organs. For viewers over 50, ongoing exposure feeds the kind of low-grade inflammation researchers now link to cardiovascular and metabolic disorders. That's the quiet danger. Not one dramatic poisoning, but 1,000 small ones, served warm, meal after meal, year after year. You trusted Hefty to be heavy-duty. The plastic was always the lightweight part. Think about how often this container touches your food. Breakfast you reheat before work. Dinner you stored on Sunday and ate on Thursday. Coffee you nuked in the same tub because it was handy. Every single time, a little more shedding, a little more migration, a little more building up in a body that's already managing enough. Hefty sells you strength on the box. What you get is a container that gives a piece of itself away every time it gets hot. That's 8 brands of trouble. But the next one isn't a budget afterthought. It's a name that's been sitting in American kitchens for generations, and it has a recall history most people never heard about. Now at number 7, Rubbermaid. Open almost any American kitchen drawer and you'll find it. Affordable, stackable, the plastic storage that's been there since you moved in. Rubbermaid is trust by sheer familiarity. That familiarity is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Multiple consumer reports and independent testing have raised concerns that older Rubbermaid plastic lines contained chemicals that can leach when microwaved or scratched, even on products waving a BPA-free label on the front. Read that again. BPA-free on the front. Leaching concerns in the lab. Those 2 things lived in the same container. Take an older tub, scratch it with a fork or a scrubbing pad a few hundred times, then microwave it hot. The scratches aren't cosmetic. Each groove is a fresh edge where plastic can break down and migrate into your food, especially something fatty or acidic. You can feel it. Run your thumb across a years-old Rubbermaid base and it's no longer smooth. It's etched. That texture is the surface giving way. Here's the part that should land. For adults over 50, repeated exposure to hormone-disrupting chemicals may worsen blood pressure control, complicate diabetes management, and add strain to kidneys already working hard. These aren't containers you used once. They're containers you've reheated in for a decade. 20 years of leftovers. 20 years of microscopic migration. BPA-free marketing. Leaching reality. The gap between the two is where your exposure lives. Rubbermaid didn't have to be premium, it just had to be everywhere. And it is. The danger isn't that it fails dramatically, it's that it never seems to fail at all, while quietly handing your food the very chemicals the label promised were gone. So if the affordable everyday brand can't be trusted, surely the legendary one your mother swore by is better. The brand that practically invented this category. Before we get there, here's what's coming. The #1 brand on this list is in more American homes than almost any other, and it doesn't hide its danger. It announces it with a smell you already know. Here's where it gets personal. Number 6, Tupperware. The name's so famous, it became the word people use for all plastic storage. Built on durability, sold at kitchen parties, the containers your mother kept for 30 years, and passed down like heirlooms. Tupperware was trust itself. Then look at what's inside the legacy. Investigations into older Tupperware lines found products made with polycarbonate plastics, along with real concerns about chemical migration under heat exposure, especially in worn, well-loved containers. Polycarbonate is the classic source of bisphenol compounds, and the most cherished Tupperware is exactly the most dangerous because it's the oldest, the most scratched, the most heated. The container you trust most has been breaking down the longest. Pull out that avocado green relic from the back of the cabinet, the one with the faded lid that still burps when you seal it. Decades of dishwasher cycles have hazed the surface to a dull, chalky finish. That haze is degradation. Fill it with hot soup, and you're steeping your dinner in a material that was never meant to last this long. The betrayal here is generational. The very containers handed down with love are the ones most likely to leach. The lid that still seals after 30 years isn't a sign of quality. It's a sign of how long the material has been wearing down against your food. For seniors managing chronic conditions or anyone with a weakened immune system, endocrine-disrupting compounds tied to metabolic and cardiovascular trouble are a heavier burden, not a lighter one. Heirloom plastic isn't a gift. It's an inheritance of exposure. You kept it because it reminded you of family dinners. It's been quietly changing your food the whole time. Tupperware earned its trust in an era nobody was testing for this. The trust survived. The science caught up. Most people never got the memo. Drop a comment if a piece of decades-old Tupperware is sitting in your cabinet right now. Let's see how many of us inherited more than we bargained for. Because the next brand isn't an heirloom, it's the one in every grocery aisle in the country. Number 5 is one most people trust without question. Glad. Stocked in nearly every major American grocery chain, the grab-and-go storage you toss in the cart without a thought. Cheap, convenient, disposable enough that you don't feel bad reusing it 10 times. That casual trust is exactly what makes it dangerous. Consumer watchdog groups have criticized certain plastic formulations and warned that repeated microwave heating may increase the release of microplastics and chemical residues into food. Glad's whole design encourages the worst-case behavior. The container is so cheap you reheat in it constantly, store acidic sauces in it, run it through the dishwasher and microwave again and again, far past what thin plastic was built to take. Watch what happens to a Glad container after a few months of real use. The clear walls fog, the lid loses its grip. A greasy film clings no matter how hard you scrub. That film is the surface starting to break down. Every reheat after that is a little more shedding into your meal. And here's the body math. Adults over 50 managing cholesterol, heart disease, or kidney problems are more vulnerable to the long-term inflammatory effects researchers tie to plastic exposure. Inflammation isn't dramatic. It's a slow simmer, fed daily, that wears on the systems already under strain. Disposable was never meant to be daily. You treated it like it was. Glad sells you the idea that cheap and convenient is harmless. The truth is, one fogged, filmy, reheated container at a time. So if the everyday grocery brand is shedding into your food, the freezer and microwave specialist must be safer, right? The one built for both extremes? Not even close. The next brand puts your food through both fire and ice, and the plastic pays the price. If this is helping you shop safer, hit subscribe. It's free, and it means you'll never miss one of these exposés. At number 4, Ziploc. Trusted for freezer-safe, microwave-ready storage in busy households nationwide, Ziploc sells flexibility. Freeze it, thaw it, heat it, all in the same bag or tub. That versatility is the trap. Independent studies on flexible plastics have raised concerns about chemical migration and microplastic shedding during both heating and freezing cycles, even among products stamped BPA-free. Read that carefully. Freezing and heating. Ziploc's entire selling point. The freeze-to-microwave pipeline is the exact stress cycle that researchers flag. You're not just heating the plastic, you're freezing it brittle, then heating it soft, over and over. And flexible plastic doesn't take that abuse without consequence. Think of the bag you pulled from the freezer, dropped in hot water, then microwaved. The way it goes from stiff and frosted to limp and steaming in minutes. That violent swing is mechanical stress on the polymer, and stress is when shedding happens. The BPA-free label doesn't cover the substitute chemicals or the microplastics breaking loose along the way. Picture the soup you froze flat in a Ziploc bag, then reheated straight in the container to save a dish. The frost crystals, the sudden steam, the way the plastic softens against the hot broth. Every one of those transitions is a moment the material can release particles you'll never see. Here's the personal cost. For older adults managing diabetes or cardiovascular disease, chronic exposure to these migrating compounds may stoke the same inflammation and hormone disruption their conditions are already fighting. You bought freezer-safe and microwave-safe believing safe meant safe for you. It meant safe from leaking, not safe from shedding. Convenience disguised the chemistry. Every freeze-thaw heat cycle is another withdrawal from a body that can't afford it. Ziploc made the whole process effortless. That's precisely why the exposure slips by unnoticed. The container does exactly what the box promised, while the box never mentioned what temperature swings do to plastic. So if the freezer specialist sheds under temperature swings, surely the bargain meal prep tubs are at least honest about being basic. The next brand isn't hiding behind premium claims, it's hiding behind a low price, and the cracks show fast. Number 3. Sterilite. The low-cost workhorse, the tubs you buy in a stack for meal prep and pantry organizing without thinking twice. Sterilite's pitch is simple, more storage for less money. But cheap plastic has a hidden invoice. Critics have pointed to inconsistent transparency about what additives go into these plastics, and how poorly they hold up after repeated dishwasher or microwave use. When a company won't clearly tell you what's in the material touching your food, that silence is the warning. Use Sterilite tubs the way people actually do, packed with leftovers, microwaved, scrubbed, repeated, and the decline shows quickly. The walls go cloudy. The corners stress whiten where they flex. A plasticky odor settles into the container and transfers a faint taste to whatever you store. That taste is migration you can literally detect on your tongue. If you can taste the plastic is in your food. Now the part that matters for your body. Seniors taking multiple daily medications face added risk when degraded plastics interact with food repeatedly over time, because the liver and kidneys clearing those drugs are the same organs left to process whatever leaches in. Stack enough low-grade exposure onto a system already managing prescriptions, and you're asking it to do more with less. Think about the meal prepper who fills a dozen of these tubs every Sunday, microwaves one a day, and runs them all through a hot dishwasher every night. That's the heaviest possible use on the cheapest possible plastic, week after week. The price tag looked like savings. The cost just moved somewhere you can't see it on a receipt. Sterilite sold you volume and value. What it didn't sell you was an honest ingredient list for the plastic against your dinner. Cheap up front, expensive in ways that don't show until later. So if a budget brand stays quiet about its additives, at least the colorful BPA-free brand built around safety is being straight with you, right? The next one puts safe right on the label. The lab results tell a more complicated story. At number 2, Sistema. The bright, cheerful containers marketed as BPA-free and built for lunches and leftovers. Sistema leans hard into the safe plastic image, vivid colors, clip-lock lids, BPA-free badges aimed straight at health-conscious shoppers. That's the whole pitch. Safer than the old stuff. Here's where the image cracks. Testing discussions have questioned whether brands like this simply swapped BPA for substitute chemicals like BPS, compounds that may behave in the body much the way BPA does. Think about what that means. You switched to BPA-free specifically to escape hormone disruption. If the replacement is a close chemical cousin, you may have changed the label, not the risk. BPA-free can be a marketing victory that's a biological draw. Open a Sistema container after months of microwaving brightly colored lunches. The vivid plastic dulls. The clip hinges loosen. The clear panels fog with use. None of that wear is covered by the 3 letters on the front. The label says what isn't inside. It says far less about what replaced it, and the body doesn't read labels. For adults over 50 dealing with hormone-sensitive conditions or blood sugar issues, a BPA substitute that mimics BPA can drive the very disruption they switched brands to avoid. You did the responsible thing. You read the label. You paid for the safer option. You stood in the aisle, compared the boxes, and deliberately chose the one waving the BPA-free flag because it felt like the careful, healthy decision. The chemistry may not have cooperated. That's the cruelest version of this betrayal, the one that punishes you for trying to be careful. Sistema sold safety as a feature. The lab asks whether the feature is real. The label changed. The molecule may not have. So if even the brand built on being the safe alternative is in question, what about the rock-bottom budget option everyone reaches for to save a buck? The #1 brand is in more American homes than almost any other, and it cracks under pressure, literally. And the #1 brand to throw out tonight? Mainstays. The budget-friendly storage sold through major American retailers, the containers you buy by the armful because they cost almost nothing. Mainstays is the definition of grab-it-and-go affordability. That rock-bottom price is the entire problem. Consumer complaints pile up around the same failures: cracking, warping, and a strong plastic odor after microwave use. Those aren't cosmetic gripes. They are visible, smellable evidence of material breaking down. The clearest red flag a container can give you. When the plastic cracks and reeks after heating, it is telling you out loud that it's unstable. Heat a Mainstays container with last night's dinner and watch it warp at the rim. Listen for the faint creak as it deforms. Then catch that sharp chemical smell rising with the steam. That odor is additives and degraded plastic going airborne and into your food. You're not imagining it. You're inhaling and eating it. And because these are the cheapest tubs on the shelf, people own dozens of them and reheat in them daily, multiplying every one of those exposures across breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The lower the price, the harder these containers get used, and the faster they fall apart against hot food. Here's the verdict for your body. Older adults with kidney disease or already compromised health face greater risk from the contaminants released by degraded plastics, because failing kidneys can't clear what stable bodies shrug off. The cheapest container becomes the most expensive exposure for exactly the people who can least afford it. $1 saved at the shelf, a toll collected by your organs. Mainstays earned the top spot not because it hides the danger, but because it announces it, cracking, warping, and stinking, while millions keep reheating in it anyway. The lowest price bought the highest risk. Drop a comment if a stack of these budget tubs is in your cabinet right now. Let's see how many of us trusted the cheapest option without a second thought. That's 9 brands down, 9 reasons to open that cabinet tonight. But here's the good news. 2 brands actually proved you can store food without storing chemistry alongside it. Safe pick 1, Pyrex. Finally, a storage container that solves the problem at its root instead of papering over it. Pyrex doesn't try to make safer plastic. It removes plastic from the part that matters. The main storage compartment is tempered glass. Yes, not a polymer that breaks down, not a surface that scratches into leaching grooves. Just glass. Glass doesn't absorb the chemistry of your food, and it doesn't give chemistry back. That single design choice erases the entire problem we've spent this whole video exposing. Pull a Pyrex dish from the cabinet and feel the difference immediately. It's heavy, solid, cool to the touch. No clouding, no warping, no plasticky smell rising when it heats. Fill it with tomato sauce, the same acidic, oily, hot food that destroys cheap plastic, and the glass simply doesn't care. It comes out clean, odor-free, exactly as inert as it went in. The containers are widely tested for oven, microwave, and dishwasher safety, and Pyrex clearly labels its lid materials as BPA-free, so even the part that briefly touches food is disclosed, not hidden. Here's what it means for the body you're trying to protect. For adults over 50, glass storage cuts exposure to the hormone-disrupting chemicals tied to heart health, blood sugar, and kidney function, not reduced by a label, reduced by physics. The food touches glass, and glass gives nothing up. You reheat without shedding. You store without migration. You stop making daily withdrawals from your health just to save leftovers. Pyrex costs a little more than a stack of disposable tubs. What you're buying is the absence of a problem, a container that does its one job and keeps its chemistry to itself. Safe pick 2, Anchor Hawking. For people who want American-made glass without the guesswork, this is the one. Anchor Hawking builds its storage around durable soda-lime glass. The same fundamental fix as Pyrex. Your food touches glass, not questionable plastic. And glass is the rare food contact material that doesn't absorb odors, doesn't soak up stains, and doesn't trade chemicals with whatever you store. That's not marketing. That's the nature of the material. The brand focuses on American-made manufacturing and emphasizes BPA-free lids. so the small amount of plastic that touches the lid is disclosed rather than buried under a vague claim. Open an Anchor Hawking container that stored garlicky, oniony, tomato-heavy leftovers for days. Lift the lid and the glass is clean, the surface clear. No ghost of last week's dinner soaked into the walls. Try that with old plastic and you'll meet a permanent funk no dishwasher can remove. That contrast is the whole point. Glass resets to neutral every time. Degraded plastic remembers everything and hands it back. Here's why it matters for the viewer we're protecting. Older adults benefit from non-reactive storage that minimizes unnecessary chemical exposure, supporting healthier meal prep instead of quietly undermining it. When you're managing conditions, taking daily medications, and asking your kidneys and liver to keep up, the last thing you need is your food container adding to the load. Anchor Hawking simply doesn't. It stores, it reheats, it washes clean, and it keeps its chemistry out of your meal. The price sits a little above the bargain plastic, but you're not paying for a logo or a heritage story. You're paying for a material that's safe by its very nature, the same nature whether it's brand new or 10 years old. Clean food in, clean food out, nothing extra. 9 containers, 9 quiet betrayals, 1 cabinet to clean tonight. Subscribe now. And if you're watching on TV, tap your remote so you never get blindsided again.